The New Federalist number 2. On the moral and civic consequence of disability as a universal condition of the human commons. Let us reason together, dear reader, not as jurists in a court of law, nor merely as philosophers in quiet contemplation, but as citizens fellow stewards of a beleaguered and noble experiment in self-governance. For if we are to reclaim the republican virtue that once animated our ancestors' struggle for liberty, we must first re-examine what it means to be human in the full scope of our frailty, our aspiration, and our shared obligations. The term disability, commonly thought to be a condition of body or mind, has been narrowed by bureaucracy and pity into a bureaucratic category, affixed like a badge of otherness. Yet I contend, and here, I implore you to consider that disability is not a subset nor a marginal condition, but a universal station we all pass through. It is no more alien to the human experience than hunger, grief, or mortality. A babe cannot rise nor feed itself, nor shield its eyes from sun or serpent. A wise man, grown old, finds again the helplessness of his beginning. And in between, we are but varying in our needs and dependencies, economic, emotional, physical, moral. Is not the addict disabled by compulsion? The impoverished disabled by systemic exclusion? The citizen misled by propaganda disabled by ignorance? When a man is not taught to read, to reason, to reckon with his neighbor, he is disabled by educational neglect, and it is no less binding than a chain. When a woman must work 3 jobs, and still cannot afford to tend her health, we call her poor. But is she not also disabled by the economy that exploits her labor, yet withholds her dignity? These, dear compatriots, are not rhetorical flourishes, but revelations of our common predicament. Disability, then, becomes not merely a condition to be pitied or medicalized, but a civic truth that each of us, at times, will lack what we need to function in dignity, in fullness, in participation. In this light, we see disability not as failure, but as the human condition unmasked. And if that is so, then it is not charity we require, but justice. Not accommodation, but solidarity. It is here that the social contract of the commons takes root. The commons is more than shared space or pooled resource. It is the recognition that we belong to one another, that your flourishing is not separate from mine, and that a society that allows any to languish in need has already begun to fracture. The state, in its highest form, ought to exist not to police and punish, but to uphold this sacred interdependence. A government that fails to educate its people in reason and virtue, that abandons its most vulnerable to market or mob, is not merely inefficient, it is immoral. But we, the people, are not blameless, for we have grown idle in our citizenship, distracted by spectacle, and addicted to comfort. We devalue the very qualities that sustain a republic: wisdom, compassion, civic duty. We have allowed merit to be measured in wealth rather than in service, intelligence in cunning rather than in clarity of conscience. And thus, we produce not citizens, but consumers, exhausted, isolated, disempowered. We have lost the language of virtue and replaced it with the jargon of profit. Yet, the hope remains. For within each of us lies the power to reconstitute the body politic not through revolution, but through recognition. Let us declare it plainly. To be human is to be vulnerable, and to be vulnerable is to be in need of a just society. Let education, then, not merely instruct, but awaken. Let it cultivate in each youth the habits of discernment, of empathy, of responsibility. Let it teach that freedom is not the license to dominate, but the burden to care. And let government be rebuilt not as a fortress of power, but as a field of service, a steward of the commons, where no person is discarded because they do not produce, and no soul is diminished by the illusion of self-sufficiency. We must build anew the moral infrastructure of our republic, lest it continue to rot beneath the gilded surface. We must proclaim a new covenant, that the true measure of a nation is how it sustains the weakest among us, not out of pity, but out of shared purpose. This is not utopianism, but realism at its most urgent. For what else is government but the organized expression of our moral will? And what is democracy, if not the acknowledgement that we all possess a claim to dignity and a duty to one another? Let the fourth age of democracy begin not with more votes, but with deeper vision. Let us rejoin in the work of the Republic not as isolated actors, but as members of a common body. And let us remember To care for the disabled is to care for the future version of ourselves. So I say, build the commons, teach the virtues, and govern with compassion. For in doing so, we not only restore the dignity of the disabled, we restore the republic itself.
We the many rise as one, bound by fire beneath one sun, not by chains, but by shared grace. This is the sacred commonplace.
Not mine, not yours, it's all we keep. The river deep, the mountain steep.
A trust we hold with sacred flame. The commons calls us each by name.
We were made for more than taking. We are bound by what we're making.
What is the common? All I share.
Truth and justice, land and air.
What do we hold? A sacred trust to God to give because we must. Virtue lived, a life well lived. Give what the common heart will give. Do good in all things, great and small. Stand with the many. Care for all. Liberty is not retreat, but rising strong with steady feet. Democracy, a sacred fire, born of duty, shaped by quiet.
We do not only hold in trust for those to come, for all that's just. Each act must ask, does this serve right? The common shines its sacred light.
Who holds the right?
Each one the same.
In dignity, in voice, in name, and what's our charge? To serve with grace, to lift the whole, to guard this place.
Duty sacred carved in flame.
Reason, justice, voice and name.
Compassion holds what power breaks.
The commons builds what conscience makes.
Not for conquest, never change. Power must be clear, humane. We rise not to rule, but men to serve the commons to the end.
Virtue lived, a life well lived. Give what the calming heart will give.
Do good in all things, great and small. Stand with the many. Care for all. What shall we fight?
Injustice blind.
Systems cruel and power unkind. What shall we build? A world made whole with civic hearts and sacred soul.
Not in ink is this declared.
But in every life that's shared,
Virtue lived, a life well lived.
the commons call.
Rise, forgive.
So let the